Hi everyone, this is Carla. I'm back with the story behind the hymn, Nearer My God to Thee. It was written by Sarah Flower Adams, and here is her story. Propped among the gay pillows of the sofa, Sarah Adams looked frail, but still very attractive in spite of a long illness. It had been 3 years now, 3 slow, dragging years since the curtain rang down on her theatrical career. She sighed and turned back to her reading, but she was restless today and her mind wandered from the pages. It was not the stubborn, nagging illness she minded so much. It was not the pain, the weakness, or even having to be alone so much of the time. It was that she'd had to give up the ambition of her lifetime, seeing her cherished dream come true, but only to lose it again suddenly and irretrievably. All of her life, as long as she could remember, she dreamed of being a great actress. She had worked and studied and struggled toward that goal, and at last had realized her ambition. She had a dramatic triumph as Lady Macbeth and was hailed as a great actress. She was looking forward to a successful career on the stage. But her triumph was brief, oh so brief. A sudden, devastating illness had turned her into an invalid, taken her off the stage, and closed that door to her forever. It was such a bitter disappointment. But being of a deeply religious nature, she had turned to God for comfort and help in this trial. In these past 3 years had spent much of her time reading the Bible and about the lives of saints and martyrs. Recently she had took up writing, mostly poems of a scriptural or religious background, and had become a contributor to magazines and church newspapers. Yesterday her minister, Mr. Fox, had come to see her about a poem she had promised for a collection of hymns and anthems that he was publishing. But she was being foolish again and feeling sorry for herself, and she started to complain about her affliction. Her minister quietly took the Old Testament down from the bookshelf, opened it to the story of Jacob's vision at Bethel, and urged her to read it. But she had read it many times before this suggestion, and she knew that story almost as well as her own, when those two words hit her, her own. Suddenly she saw the unmistakable parallels between Jacob's story and her own illness and disappointment. She saw everything clearly now, the darkness, the dream, the awakening, the sunshine, the triumph, and eventually the joy. She knew now why her minister had insisted that she reread it. She would do more than that, though. She would write a poem about it and show how her and our very own sufferings and afflictions may be very footsteps bringing us nearer to heaven, nearer to God Himself. She was inspired by the theme. She saw the closed door to her own life's ambition as the cross that raiseth me. She saw her illness and disappointments, her loneliness and her pain as steps towards heaven themselves. So by my woes to be nearer my God to Thee, nearer to Thee. It sang like a refrain through her heart and mind. She wrote it almost without effort, almost as though the words came to her from some powerful outside source. Nearer my God to Thee, nearer to Thee. Even though it be a cross that raiseth me, still all my song shall be, nearer my God to Thee, nearer to Thee. Though like a wanderer the sun gone down, darkness be over me, my rest a stone, yet in my dreams I be, nearer my God to Thee, nearer to Thee. There let the way appear, steps unto heaven, all that Thou sendest to me in mercy given, angels to beckon me, nearer my God to Thee, nearer to Thee. Then with my waking thoughts, bright with Thy praise, out of my stony griefs Bethel I'll raise, so by my woes to be, nearer my God to Thee, nearer to Thee. Or if on joyful wing, cleaving the sky, sun, moon, and stars forgot, upward I fly, still all my song shall be, nearer my God to Thee, nearer to Thee. The poem that Sarah Adams wrote that afternoon out of her own great need and her own great faith has become one of the world's most beloved hymns. Nearer my God to Thee is today sung universally in homes and churches and has become a favorite of millions of people. It is often sung in times of death or disaster, for it is a hymn of great comfort in the crises of life, a hymn of promise and hope for those who are grief-stricken or afflicted. In the last tragic moments of the Titanic disaster, when the ship was going down carrying hundreds of people to their immediate deaths, the band played Nearer My God to Thee to the very last, until the surging waters closed above them. Survivors told later how doomed passengers had knelt on the deck to pray, and how many had just stood quietly, but without panic, and joined in the singing of that hymn. When gold was discovered in Alaska, and hordes of greedy men rushed to the Yukon to get their share, Evangeline Booth knew that her Salvation Army would be needed there also. So she headed north with a half-dozen assistants and arrived to find conditions worse than she had ever dreamed. Vice and lawlessness were the order of the day. Men were shot down for a handful of that gold dust, or sometimes for no reason at all. On the very day that Evangeline Booth arrived, 5 men were killed. There were shortages of everything: blankets, food, equipment, and clothing. The men were hot-tempered, quick to speak and surly to deal with, and in no mood to hear a sermon. But Evangeline Booth knew the Salvation Army could help, and she knew just what to do. That evening, she and her little band stood by themselves on the banks of the Yukon River and started to sing Nearer My God to Thee. All of a sudden, lonely men began to gather, just a few, and then a dozen, and then 20s, and then hundreds, and eventually into the thousands. And there were nearly 25,000 men joining in the singing of that hymn that day. There was singing then every day after that, and the town became much less disorderly, and quite a few shootings less. The hymn was a favorite of the martyred President McKinley. As he lay dying from an assassin's bullet, friends near his bedside heard him whisper several lines of Nearer My God to Thee. It was also a favorite of Theodore Roosevelt, of Harriet Beecher Stowe, and countless others. Weaving the pattern of her own life into a familiar scriptural background, Sarah Flower Adams produced a hymn of enduring beauty, a hymn of hope and faith, an inspiring source that has comforted millions. Thank you for watching.